the New Testament kind of, in the what I talk about as like progressive revelation of the whole Bible, the New Testament adds this idea of Jesus by his Spirit gives us the new heart so that we can perfectly like love God and
Obey the law, you mean? Because the great prediction of a new covenant in Jeremiah 31, which Christians referred to as to the new covenant. You no longer obey the written Torah. It's from the spirit, from the heart. But it says that you will obey the Torah that's written on your heart.
Right.
So it's still Torah observance. Actually, interestingly, it's not. Torah hasn't been abolished.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul himself in Ephesians 2:15 says the Torah with its commandments and regulations has been abolished, which is contradictory to what Matthew 5:17 says. Do not think I've come to abolish the law. It's Jesus in Matthew 5.
when we take actually all of the laws, like we have the Sabbath law, where no longer do I have to rest one day a week, but I rest 7 days a week in Jesus. So like he is the fulfillment of Sabbath rest, and like no longer, do I have to do certain sacrifices because I trust in Jesus, who was offered on my behalf as the perfect, ultimate, final sacrifice.
But Jesus said that forgiveness of sins was freely available for those who turn to God in sincere heart. You don't need a human sacrifice or any sacrifice. You say it doesn't require sacrifice or a human sacrifice of Jesus. That's not required either.
That's what enables God to save those who turn to him with a pure heart. No one could have been saved through just believing if that sacrifice had not been made.
The people were saved apart from that. The people who followed the law were saved, obeyed the Jewish law, were saved. They didn't need Jesus to die for them. They were forgiven. Luke chapter 1 verse 6 talks about Zechariah and his wife, I think, being righteous under the law because of their obedience to the law.
Right.
So righteousness was possible under the law, contrary to what Paul says in Galatians, where righteousness is not available under the law. But even Luke says it was in chapter 1.
I guess I need to be honest and say that I would need to go back and properly study exactly what is meant by those terms. But I think that it is consistent through the New Testament to believe that salvation only comes through belief in the death of Jesus.
How does Jesus' death make God forgive sins? I don't understand the connection.
Because a sacrifice was required on our behalf.
A human sacrifice. For humans to be forgiven, God required a human sacrifice. It sounds quite pagan to me. A human sacrifice is condemned by God. But it's like, why does God need to sacrifice a human being? Why can't he just forgive people?
I mean, that's an interesting question that I am interested when it comes to Islam. How can you have confidence that on the day of judgment you are forgiven if it's just a case of
Good question.